just paused. Okay. So what am I going to do? Do I have to back up and start over again? I probably should do some of that. I won't bore you with the beginning statements. I'll just go back and talk about the spreadsheet. Okay, so let me reshare the spreadsheet.
Mr. Blah.
Yes.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I'm still having problems getting into that Office 365. Is that why it's not letting me go in to do anything?
What's not letting you go in to do something?
I can get the graph up, but it won't let me go in to fill it in or nothing. I can't, options is not even open for me to click on.
You can get the graph up?
Well, the Excel up.
Okay, you can load the Excel.
I can
right?
load the Excel, but that's as far as it'll let me go. It just goes in, and I can pull the bar up on the side to go down to options, but options isn't highlighted to where I can click on it.
Oh, like we did before to get the data analysis up?
Right.
Huh. Is data analysis missing?
Yeah, it's not on there at all.
Not on there? Oh.
The school's version doesn't have everything that Excel has.
Oh.
It's like a trial.
Okay. All right. So if you don't have access to a full version of Office, then you won't be able to do data analysis. But if you're brave enough, I've given you instructions on how to set it up for, do it manually.
Okay.
I'll take that into consideration.
Now, if I get that 365 loaded up, it should allow me to go into Excel, correct? Or will it?
Oh, are you telling me that you don't have 365 yet?
I have tried putting it on there, and I thought last night it came up, but it's not even coming up now at all. It's telling me that I need to either sign up for a trial or buy it.
Okay. Contact Gary Davis. I know he's in his office today. So if you email Gary Davis and tell him your problem, then he'll be able to tell you whether he can fix it or not.
Okay.
Okay. He's our IT contact.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. I want to call up this one to share. And what I'm going to do is, since I failed to start recording, I'm going to go back.
I have a question.
Yes, who's talking?
Stormy.
Okay.
So I'm following along with the worksheet, and on page 3, it tells you to label the columns differently. So I'm not sure. Maybe I'm on the wrong page.
Oh. Well, let me see. Start Excel. Okay, similar. A1. Sample mass. Okay. Oh, did I leave out the sample number part?
Just the way I read it, it said sample mass was supposed to go in the A column.
Yeah, okay. Right. You don't have to put sample number, a column in there if you don't want to.
Okay, thank you.
What you may want to do is let's do that. I didn't realize that I'd left that out. So let's, if I highlight both those columns and right click and delete, gets rid of everything. So since we started late, I'm going to I'm going to leave off the sample number part. You don't actually have to have a sample number. And if, so that there's no more confusion about my reference numbers in the document, then we're just going to start with A1 is our sample mass. So if you type in sample mass and then grams, then you double click in the divider here, and that expands it to cover, and then you put in your masses. All right, so so let's see, I got that one, I got 1307, 1612, 1.488, 1534. So let me check myself, be sure I got the right numbers in there. Okay. All right. So now we've got the correct numbers, and I want to center them. So let's highlight the column and going up here and hit the alignment for centering. Then you may notice one other thing, we don't have zeros here. What Excel does is it truncates off all the right-hand zeros until you get to a non-zero number. But that doesn't look good. So we're also going for aesthetics here. If you only have one cell that you want to change the format of, that's fine. But if you have more than one, just click and hold and drag it to highlight everything that you want to be formatted. And then if you right-click, a context menu comes up with the ability to format your cells. This is not the only way to get there, but it's the one that I like, and I'll show you another way. You go up here to cells, and you can format up here also. So we're going to change the format of the cell, go down here to format, and click on that. And then what we want to do is format the number, use a numbering format. And here you have so many decimal places, right? I want 4 decimal places. That would balance out all the numbers. And just click till you get 4 and say OK. You may have noticed when you're in that format, you can change the format of these cells to whatever you want, right? It could be, let's see, we could do currency, right? I use that in my budget spreadsheet that I have here at home, or dates and times, or percentages, or you could use scientific notation, or you could tell it that there's nothing in those cells but text. Or it also gives you an opportunity to use custom formatting. There are other things you can do in the cell, right? You can do alignments, you can change the font, you can change the borders. You know, say we want to put borders around that thing, like that, right? So there you got borders. But I don't want that. Okay, so there we are, and I'm going to save it. Next, we want to put in the volume of hydrochloric acid that was used to analyze the sample. In other words, the sample was titrated with this volume of hydrochloric acid. So we need a header for it. And let's see, volume of, did I do it that way in the document? No, I just put V for volume, didn't I? Okay. Oh, that's okay. Let me be consistent. So the volume is measured in milliliters. And notice milliliters is small m, big L, because the fundamental unit of liter is a large L for liter. And the prefix of milliliters, is a small m, standing for milli. What if it was a big M? What would that mean? That would mean mega. We don't have megaliters. We have milliliters. So that's why the small m, large L in the abbreviation for milliliters. Now we want to put in the values for the volume of hydrochloric acid, and we just type those in and hit enter, and it ratchets down to the next one. And I put that in wrong. I may be fast, but I'm not accurate. Okay, so let's see. Let me check my numbers. There, 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 and there. Okay, so that's good. I'm going to save. Okay, so this is all the raw data for our, that's what we actually collected in the lab. Let's see, do I want to, you don't have to align these. You could leave the numbers just like that, but say you want all your headers to be centered. Well, you could just go over here, and if you click on that row number 1, the whole thing highlights, and then you can change. Sometimes you have to click it twice to get it to behave. But now everything that we put in there is going to be centered. Whereas with this one, those are centered, and these are right justified. Right? How do we know? Well, if you cull down there, well, no, it didn't say that. Align right. We could align center. It looks better, doesn't it? Okay, what's the next thing we want to do? Now we want to do a calculation, but we want to identify the results of the calculation. And in this case, we want, this is going to be the number of moles of hydrogen ions. Now I know at this point you don't know what moles means, but it's the number of hydrogen ions that were transferred in the process of reacting the acid with the sample. That's all that means. So the symbol for moles is a small n. Notice that it's the same symbol as neutrons, except without the little 0 up there in the right-hand corner. So that can be confusing too. A little n with nothing else is moles. So mole space, then hydrogen, and the hydrogen ion is a plus charge, +1 charge. Now, notice the +1 charge is in the wrong place. That's supposed to be a superscript. So if you highlight it and you go to font, and then down here you'll see superscript. Click on that and say OK. And there you get the superscript for the hydrogen in its proper place. Remember, the upper right-hand corner is a position around an element symbol that designates the charge. Notice, though, that it may be right there, but in the formula bar, you can't tell. You have to look in the cell to see that the change has been made. Now, what's the calculation? Well, the calculation is given in step 3 on page 3. And the calculation in this cell is going to be equals. Remember, type equals, that means a formula is coming. And the first thing we do is multiply by 0.001.
Excuse me. I was wondering if you could go back to showing how to make it a superscript. I was trying to figure it out, but I couldn't.
Okay. Okay. All right. So let's do that. Let's say you've already got it in there, and it looks like this. Well, if you want to do any editing, you have 2 options, actually. If you're in the cell there and you hit F2, then you can edit from there, like that. But if you don't remember that, if you're in the cell, then all you have to do is go up here and highlight the part of the thing you want to edit. So I highlighted the plus, right? Okay, now that you've got it highlighted, go to the font panel in the ribbon. And this arrow in the lower right-hand corner expands that and gives you more options. And that's where you pick the superscript.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Now the calculation. We say equals, and then we're going to multiply times 0.001, and that's times shift the number 8 gives us asterisk, and that's time what's in B2, right? So you can type in B2, or you can just click on it and it puts it in your formula. And then we're going to times something else. So what's next? Well, we're going to times by 0.1098. 0.1098. Now, why did we use that? We use that because 0.1098 is the concentration of the acid. We need to know the concentration of the acid times the amount of acid to give us the number of moles. Plus, we needed to modify the units of the concentration. That's why 0.001 is multiplied by that as well. Because the concentration is in molar, which we haven't talked about yet, I understand. But the units of volume in molar concentration is milliliters. But in order to get moles out of it, you have to change the volume to liters. And that's why the 0.001, that's 1,000th of it. And it gives you that answer. Okay, now what do? You have to type in each one? Well, fortunately, no. Since we have a relative reference here of that cell, B2, if we copy this one down to the next cell below, it's going to say not B2, but B3, because relative reference says it's one to the left of where you are. So if we copy it down, and you can do that by either highlighting it, copy it, highlight again, right click is what I'm doing, and paste it, right? Then it automatically recalculates. Or you can say, highlight it, and then move your cursor till you get that cross on it, and then hold down the control key. There, see it change? And then click and drag to the next one. And that copies to the next one. But that's not the last of them. There's one other way. If you want to copy that formula with its relative reference to every cell below it, just highlight it and go down to that, get that solid plus sign in the lower right-hand corner, click and drag. And it will copy to each one in sequence. And notice that the reference is proper. B6, B7, there you go. They're all done. That's the fast way. Okay, now we may want to format this one too. Well, look, we've got 4 significant figures, 4 significant figures. Let's be sure we have 4 in this one. So if we have 4 significant figures in this number, how many decimal places is that? That would have to be 6, because the first 2 zeros don't count. So if you highlight it, right-click it, and format, then you go to number and say, we want 6 decimal places. There we go. Now it looks more balanced. And of course, don't forget to save. Okay. Next. Let's see. All right, that was item 4. We did that one. Alternate methods, copy paste. Let's see. Now we want to, in our next one, remember we're trying to find out how much calcium carbonate is in the sample. So we're going to convert this value to carbonate. Excuse me. So the next one is going to be the number of moles of carbonate. So there's our N, and then we want carbonate, which is CO3 with a 2- charge. Okay. Okay, I'm frozen for hope it unfreezes. Is it gonna be difficult? That's why you need to save often also, in case your program freezes on you. There it goes. It must have just been thinking. Okay, now we want to both subscript and superscript. So this is going to be a 2-step process. You're going to have to do one and then follow it with the other one. So I'm going to go up here and highlight the 3 and then go down and open that one for subscript. Okay, and then I'm going to go to 2- and do the same thing for superscript. There we go. So now it looks right because the carbonate ion, and you'll remember from your polyatomic ion list that carbonate is one of those polyatomic ions. Okay, better save it. Now, the calculation. What are we going to use to calculate the carbonate? My guess is we're going to use the number of moles of hydrogen to determine the number of moles of carbonate. Right? So what's the ratio of hydrogen ions to carbonate ions? It's actually 2 to 1. So for every 1 carbonate, we have 2 hydrogens. And notice that that makes sense because if hydrogen is combined with carbonate, which it was in the reaction, then you have a 1+ here, but you've got 2 minuses. So for every 1 of these, you need 2 of those. So that means you only have half as many carbonates to produce this many hydrogen ions. That's why this formula is going to just be divide what's in C2 equals C2 divided by 2. So that's how many moles of carbonate were determined. And then you can copy the formula by clicking that lower right-hand button and pulling it down, and there you go. So let's format this one to 4 significant figures also. Highlight, right-click, format, and let's see, numbers. 6 decimal places gives us 4 significant figures. Okay? I'll stop for just a second. I want to get ahead of everybody. Let's see. Okay, so now that we know how much carbonate, oh, you know what? I told you wrong. It's not calcium carbonate we're after, it's sodium carbonate. So that may change the formula a little bit. In my head, it won't change it in the paper because the paper is written to reflect sodium carbonate. So now that we've got that formula, which is step number 6 on page 3, Then if we go to the next one is we're going to determine the mass of sodium carbonate. Okay, so we'll just type in mass, sodium, taken twice, carbonate, there, parentheses G for grams. Okay, that doesn't all fit, does it? So let's double click on this bar between the two. There we go, expanded it for us. Now we need to go in and do the subscript thing again. Oops, subscript. I've never tried to do both of them at once. Let me see if it can. Nope. So you got to do one at a time. I've tried to work to build a macro or a key, a built-in key. So you just click it and it's done. But the quick key that works for subscript and superscript does the entire cell. It doesn't do parts of a cell. So for now, I have to do it the old-fashioned way. There we go. Fortunately, we only have to do it for individual cells. We don't have to do it for a whole bunch of stuff. I did have an add-in at one time. I think with the latest upgrade in Excel, it doesn't work anymore. So I won't bore you with the details of that one. Okay, so we need to do a calculation for the mass of sodium carbonate based upon the moles of sodium carbonate, of carbonate, excuse me. So we haven't gotten to this type of calculation yet in the class. So it's just going to be a formula that you're given. And let's see, where did I put it? We need to use the molecular weight of sodium carbonate, which is 105.99. And all that's required is because for every mole of carbonate, we have a mole of sodium carbonate. So if we have the same number of moles, all we need now is the molar mass, so the molecular weight of sodium carbonate, and we can convert. So why that works will come later. But for now, we're just going to put in a formula. We're going to say, we're going to reference this cell, and we're going to multiply it, shift 8, multiply it, times its molar mass, 105.99. Okay, so notice I just clicked outside the cell and it automatically accepted it. So now we just do the same thing, click and drag, and there we go. So this one needs 4 significant figures, which in this case is going to be actually 4 decimal places. So we've already got it highlighted. We just right click it, format it, and go to numbers, there, and give me 4 decimals, and there you go. Okay, now one thing about this formatting is that Excel still has all of those digits in the cell. It's not showing you those digits because you told it not to by changing it to 4 digits. It didn't round off and throw those things away. They're still there, right? So we could change the format to 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 20, 30 digits, and it would show all of them. It's just the nature of the way computers calculate. They keep everything. Okay, so now we got the mass. Now we need to calculate the percent because we want to know how pure is the sample, right? So the sample has this many grams of sodium carbonate in it, but the original sample was 0.14 grams. So this is less than the total was sodium carbonate. And we want to know what is the percent by weight of sodium carbonate in our sample. So the formula is just you take this value, divide it by the total, times 100, gives you a percent purity. And let's see, we're designating that as percent, which is shift 5, percent, and then sodium. I'm going to give you another option. Why don't we take this one, and if you grab and hold that and move it to the right, it makes another copy. Now we can edit it, right? We don't have to do the subscript over again. So if you say, take that, and we're not mass now, we're percent. So let's just position our cursor and backspace, and then put in the percent and give it a space. So that's percent sodium carbonate, but it's not mass anymore. It's not grams. It's percent, which is a dimensionless number, parts per 100. So it could be grams per 100 grams. It could be grams per 100 milliliters. It could be milliliters per 100 milliliters. But we want to designate it as mass of the sodium carbonate per 100 grams, or mass of the total sample. So that's why instead of grams, we go in there and say, I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to put in W/W. What that means is it's weight. That is the mass of the sodium carbonate over the mass of the sample. I know that weight is convention. Instead of putting MM for mass, you could do that, but weight is from way back. So now I'm going to save that, of course. Now, how do we do that calculation? Well, I don't even have to look at my paper. I can just say the formula is going to be equals something, and I'm going to say equals that cell divided by my slash this cell, and then times 100. Now, we want to be sure that it's not A2 times 100 divided into E2. So you put a parentheses around that one, that one. Now we're telling it divide first, and then multiply by 100. Oops, my mistake. You can't move to another cell when you're in the middle of a formula, or it'll stick that cell into your formula. So once you're there and you have everything you want, you hit enter. There, now it accepts your formula and you can move anywhere you want. Okay, so if we take this one and do the same thing, just move it down, grab that handle, drag it, we've done all the calculations. Okay, save it. All right. Now, let me see. I'm going to try to stay in order. All right, this is where we get into checking your data. In other words, when you look at your data and you know that the numbers are supposed to be, the answers should be similar. right? If you're doing a good job, then the precision should be good. That is, the spread from here all the way down should be good. Over here, it's a different sample size, a different volume required. These calculations, they may be all over the place. But when you do the final calculation for the percent composition, it's coming from the same material. It's just subsamples of the same material. So these numbers should be pretty close. But notice what we've got here. These look reasonably well. That one's a little high. But this one is way off the charts, right? So what you don't want to do is let the machine tell you what to think. I've seen scientists actually do that. They let the machine tell them what to think about their research instead of inspecting the data themselves and maybe using the powers of a computer to help them organize the data. But you don't let the computer tell you what to think about your data. And if you inspect the data, then sometimes you will see these odd numbers, and this is an outlier that you need to investigate. Why is it that radically different than the other ones? Almost 100%. So what that tells me is that the mass that you determined of the sodium carbonate is greater than the mass of the sample. And that can't be. So let's put on our detective's cap and say, how did it get there? Well, this is a calculation. This is a calculated value. It comes from this one, and that one comes from this one, and that one comes from this one. This is the data that you put in. So your problem is more than likely here with that number, with the volume, because the masses look pretty close together. Right? So that number right there is probably wrong. So maybe you just input the data wrong. Well, the table on the page 2 has that number. So you have two choices. Either you throw that one out, call it an outlier and get rid of it, or you try to reason, why would it be that number? What could possibly be the mistake? Well, let's see. I'm just guessing. Suppose we go back and look at our notes. And our notes are not this table. Our notes are handwritten in our lab notebook. And we find that the value is actually 22.42. Okay, then that would be a valid change because the real number that you determined in the lab is in your lab notebook and it's 22.42. Just type a number, it overwrites. Now we get the calculations are automatically recalculated to reflect that change. And there we have a value that looks better. Now, if we actually had that number in our lab notebook, then I would suspect that it was recorded wrong. There was some measurement error, and you would have to throw that one out. So you just take that out of your data set before you do any other calculations. But what I'm saying is, we went back to our notebook and found that this is the true value. And actually, that was put in there to demonstrate the fact that if you change a number that's part of a calculation, every other cell that uses that cell's value to calculate is automatically recalculated. Okay, so now we have that. And next is to, let's see, the next is to do statistical calculations. Okay, so my apologies to Jeannie. You won't be able to follow us with this one, but hopefully.
I think I've actually got it on. I
Yeah.
hope.
Oh, okay. Okay, good.
The only thing I do have a quick question for. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Whenever I plug in the numbers, like in column A on number 4, mine's showing up 1.31E. Is that something I should look back over whenever you post it?
1.31E. That is scientific notation.
Okay.
Okay, so the way to fix that is just highlight all your numbers like that, and then go in and format them.
Okay.
Format, and then say format numbers, and just do it this way. My guess is it's defaulted to scientific,
Okay.
and that's the way it looks with scientific.
So do all the numbers just general or number?
Right, go into number and
Okay.
tell it how many decimals. If you go to general, you don't have the option for decimals. If you go to number, then you can tell it how many decimals.
Okay.
And that should fix that problem.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so now we want to do data calculation. And let's see if I can do this on the fly. Where do we want to put our data table? Right. So I would say some down here, right? We're going to do calculations on this column only.
Your entire screen is green on my page.
Green?
Yeah, like I can't see anything but green.
Is anybody else having that trouble?
Yeah, mine is too.
Okay, let me save it and let me stop the share. Okay, you can see me now?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try that again and reshare the screen.
Yay.
It's back.
Is it back? Okay,
Yes.
Good. The problem now is that it probably recorded the green screen. So for as an editorial note to those coming in at this point, you're going to see all this work done and may not know how it got there. But if you check the hard copy and look at and just click on the cell and you see the formulas, you'll see how the formulas were put in there. Okay, so now we're going to do data analysis. So I want it to be, let's see, if I put it in this cell, then it implies that the data analysis is for the data that's above. So we're going to analyze this data. All right. So if I go to the data tab and then go to data analysis, there we go. And we want to do, let's see, which ones are we going to do? Descriptive Statistics, I believe, that one. So you just click on it and say, okay. Then it asks you for an input range. So if you click on this little icon that looks like a spreadsheet, then it allows you to go over here and highlight the input data like that. Or you can type it in manually if you want to. And then click on this icon again, and there it is in your system. Okay. Oh, back up. If you if you highlight the numbers plus the title, so let's go back and delete that. If you include the title, then you have the option of saying the labels are in the first row. So it'll keep the label as it'll put that label into your statistics when it calculates them. So it's easier to keep track and reference the source of the data. But it won't actually use that first row to calculate. It'll go down one row and then start. Okay, now where are we going to put it? Output range. Well, we decided, I think, output range. We decided that we wanted to go here. And for this calculation, you only have to tell it the upper left-hand corner, and it'll fill in down and to the right, however much room it needs. So if you just say that cell, then you're good to go. Now, what do we want to include? Let me see. What did I put in the instructions? Descriptive statistics, summary statistics, we want that. Confidence level for the mean, and that's a statistical term. 95% confidence means that 95% of the values inside the statistical range that's being calculated are considered good. And there's only a 5% chance that your answers will actually be outside that range. And the level is 95%, that's good. Okay, so we've got everything we need in there, I believe. And then all we have to do is click OK, and it will do the calculations for us. Okay, so by designating this first row as a title, puts it in here for us. Now, the only thing it didn't carry over was the formatting. Right? So in order to get the formatting, you've got to go back up here once you've highlighted the cell, or click F2, and then move the cursor over till we get to there and say there, and then go into the home font, subscript, there, and let's go in here. There we go.
I had a question.
Certainly.
So when you're putting the, because I have to leave right now, but when you're putting your recording on, is it just going to be on Blackboard under Lab?
Yeah, I'll put it in the lab, right? 103.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
it'll
I just have to leave right now.
okay. It'll be in the folder with the exercise itself.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question as well, please.
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but my data analysis disappeared and I had to cancel it and redo it. Would you be able to walk me through the last step you just did?
Oh, to make this to do all the analysis?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'm going to back up. So I'm going to use Control Z, which goes backwards through all the edits I've done. Well, it should have. All right. Okay. So I'm going to have to hit delete. There we go. Now we're back to our starting point. Okay, you want to decide where do you want your information to go when the calculations are made, and we've selected that. You're going to have to tell it later, of course, but you want to identify your position first. Okay, so let's go to Data, Analysis, and we're going to do Descriptive Statistics. Nothing fancy. And then it remembers what I did before, but I'll go through the steps anyway. So wait a minute, what did you see what I did? Input range, right? So we got to pick an input range. Where's the data that you're going to perform the calculations on? And all you have to do is highlight, well, let's include the title. Highlight the data range, and then click this icon, and you're back where you started with that information input. Grouped by columns, that's a default. So if you put your data in the form of columns like this, then you're good to go. If you put your data in rows, then you need to tell it rows. Labels in the first row. So you need to identify that, or it's going to try to do the calculations with an alpha cell, and it's going to give you an error message. So labels in the first row. Output range, where we're going to go with the output. Okay, we're going to go right down here. Right, so it puts that in there, and you only need upper left-hand corner of your output range, and it'll fill in whatever cells it needs. And then we're going to pick what type of calculations are going to be done. Summary statistics we've chosen, and the confidence level at 95%. That's a default. You can change it if you want, but we're going to leave it alone. Then when you hit OK, there's all your calculations. We'll do a little formatting here. Right, for this one, we need to subscript the 2 home font, subscript, and subscript the 3. Oops, let me go back up here. Here we go. Subscript 3, because when it got the title, when it pulled the title from cell F1, it didn't carry with it the formatting. Okay. So let me hit this. Double click. There we go. Gets that in line. Okay. Now we want to format this other stuff. So we can't see everything there. So you have two choices. You can either change the font and decrease the size of the lettering, or you can go up here to this column divider and double click it, and it'll stretch that out to incorporate. How about your numbers? Well, apparently there was no mode. They couldn't calculate the mode. And that's, if you never had statistics, you may not understand what median and mode and all those mean, which is no big deal. This is just to demonstrate how to do it. And the information, you'll have to learn what the information means in order to make use of it later. But what we want to do is format it so that it's more aesthetic. And it looks to me like we don't want the count to be changed, because the count is just a digit, a whole number. So we're going to highlight these, and I think you can even go over that one. It's not a number. If it's not a number, then the numbering change that we make to the formatting won't affect that cell. So let me see if it's going to make me a liar or not. Right click, format cells, and then go to numbers, and let's say how many decimal places do we want? Well, let's see, something that would look okay would be maybe 3 decimal places. That's good enough. You can make 3, 4. When you're thinking of significant figures in here, it's difficult because each one is going to be calculated differently. So the aesthetics takes precedence in this case. So there's the mean, right? In fact, the mean probably only needs to be 2 decimal places, because we know that the mean is going to be 4 significant digits. Why? Because this is 4, that has to be 4. So we actually ought to reformat this one for 4 decimal places, 2 decimal places, excuse me. 2 decimal places would be, there we go. That would be 4 significant figures. And let's center it. There we go. Let's center this one too. There we go. All right. So there's our descriptive statistics. And this one, what did I say? We want to make it median. Let's make these 2 decimal places also. That corresponds better with the decimal places up here. Okay. So those are descriptive statistics. Now what we want to do is present the data in such a way that it's easier to see trends or changes. We got one that was obvious. Remember that one? That was a value problem with the volume here, right? But these numbers might look good, but until you put them in the form of a graph, it might not be so easy to detect. So let me shift over a little bit. We're not going to need those ABC columns so much. So now what we want to do is make a graph of our data. And the best way to do that, the simplest way, I should say, is highlight with the title, and then insert. Go up here to the Insert tab and insert a chart. Let's see, I got some stuff in the way here. Let me put that out of the way. There. Recommended charts. Usually when you only have one set of numbers, you don't have paired numbers. Paired numbers, you would want to put a scatter diagram with dots, because that represents, like I showed you on the graph before, one dot represents two numbers, an X and a Y value. But with a single set of numbers, a bar graph works best. So that's why we picked that one, highlight that, and pick this bar graph. If you click that little down arrow, then you have these choices. Let's keep it real simple. So let's say that one. Okay, so there's our bar graph that it constructed for us, but it's not quite accurate. It doesn't have enough information. So let's fix it. First thing you want to do is get the title right. We know how to do that. So you just click on the title and highlight that value, and then go to the font and subscript. Okay, do that one for this one, and get another subscript. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to save that. Okay, so one of the lessons that seems to be the hardest to teach is that graphs and tables in any report, whether it's for a course, a lab course like this, or whether you're trying to publish it in a referee journal, all figures, they call them, which includes these types of bar graphs and line graphs and tables, they have to stand alone. In other words, the reader should be able to look at the figure and all the information that's required to understand what's being said is right there in the figure. So at this point, we don't have that, because what does 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mean, right? Yeah, well, it means sample number, right? Or what does 83.5 through 87 mean? It means percent sodium carbonate by weight. Okay, so that's given in the title. So you can get away with that one. But you can also label the axes. And to do that in Excel, you go up here to this plus sign. This is one way to do it. There's another way to do it. Plus sign, excuse me. Yeah, it's covered up by my, let me move something out of the way that you can't see. So axis titles, here we go. So now we have titles on each axis. And you can edit those, right? Just put your cursor in there and edit what's in the title. In this case, it's simply sample number. Okay, and this one would basically be what's in the chart title. So put your cursor in there, and let's see, I think I need to use the back key and the delete key to get rid of those. And then we're going to put in percent sodium to, oops, carbonate, 3. Wait, there. And then we want to subscript these as well. You have to highlight those things. Go up here and subscript. And let's do the 3. And that's subscript there. There you go. So now let me save that after doing all that hard work. Okay, so we have our axes are labeled now. Now, at this point, the title is a duplicate of the axis. So we probably want to change this to something else, an overall title for the chart. And we may say something like analysis or samples for sodium carbonate, something like that. And this is all the information that your reader needs to know. Now, what do we see? Well, Excel, when you create a chart like this, Excel automatically sets the limits, the lower limit and the upper limit, to be more or less aesthetically pleasing. So the ones that are about the same height are positioned in the middle of the graph. That's why this was chosen and not some other number. And the scale of the y-axis is such that it throws this one into suspicion, right? Number 5 would be 86.5, right? So in the chart, it didn't look that far off. But when you check the analysis and put it in a graphical form, you can see it sticking out like a sore thumb. So that may cause you to go check your analysis on that one also. Now, I don't have a correction for this one. You may decide that since these are very similar to one another, then you may want to say that one's an outlier. There's an undetermined error in the measurement, and throw it out. Okay. When you do that, you probably want to explain why you threw it out. Right? And you do that in your lab notebook. Because, well, one of the things you're going to do is you're going to print this page out and cut and paste it into your lab notebook. Remember, on the left-hand side that you left untouched, you would paste it in. Now, you paste it in, somebody can come along and just rip it out, right? So how do you know if there was something there before it was ripped out? Well, you take, once you pasted it in, then you sign it, starting with the pasted part, and sign it across the border into the lab notebook, so that if it's pulled out, you see that there was only half of your signature there, and you know it's missing. Oh, maybe it just fell out, right? You're using inferior glue or something like that. But that way you know that something was there and now it's not. Okay, so what else are we going to do besides, well, now that we've got the, this is all the actual work in Excel that we were going to do. But you need to produce a hard copy. You need to print it. So I need to get everything back on the, let's see, it may be there. Even at that magnification, I think I can still do it. Okay, so printing. How do you print from Excel? Well, if this is everything that's on the page, then Excel assumes that everything that's on the page is what you want to print if you don't tell it any otherwise. So if you go to File and Print, then it will give you a preview of what you want to print. Well, notice that it put it on two different pages, right? There's one page, and then there's the next page, right? Even with some of your information. Suppose we want it on one page, right? Well, let's arrange it so that we can do that. So over here in your options for printing, we're going to print on one side, right? You pick your printer. I've got my printer. I think I'd rather use a color printer. This is my laser black and white printer. So, oh, wrong, excuse me. Let me pick my color printer. I think it's this one. And then let's change the page orientation. Instead of portrait, let's make it landscape. Okay? Now, we still don't have everything on one page, right? Still got things on two pages. So let's tell it to put everything on one page. Scaling. So click that little arrow and say, fit it on one page. There it is. Everything's on one page now. Notice that there are no grid lines. In other words, if you want to be sure that you're looking across at the same row, you have to maybe pull out a ruler. So another option that you can do is go back. Look at the upper left-hand corner, this back key. Let's go back into your spreadsheet. And let's say, let's highlight all of our data. There you go. And then you can either right-click and format it, or you can go up here to fonts, and they've got a little a border box, and down-click, and there's an option for all borders. So you can put a thin line in there to make a lined table, and that was probably sufficient. You can do the same thing for this one, right? If you want to make all these, then you could say, make them line table, like that. You don't need to do that for your graph. Besides, it's not as easy to do it for the graph as it is for the spreadsheet. So I want to save that. Now, suppose that you have more than one job on the same sheet. If you just go to print, then Excel is going to automatically put everything into your print job. But let's suppose you only want this section and nothing more. Then what you need to do is go to the upper left-hand cell, click and hold, and then drag through all of your data, all your calculations, and out beyond the chart, right? It doesn't show the chart highlighted, but the chart is there, believe me, and I'll show it. I'll prove it to you in a second. You've highlighted that stuff. Now you want to say, this is what I want printed. So you go to your page layout and say print area. Set print area. Set print area means whatever I've highlighted is what I'm going to print. So you set the print area. Then you can go to this lower right hand and you have other options for your print job. If that's all you want, if you've got everything you need, then you can just go down to print preview. And there it is with our line boxes, and there's the graph highlighted. And then you can you go to your printer here and you pick out your properties that you want. I like to do a better quality, so I'll make mine a fine quality. It's only going to be on one page, so I don't need two-sided page. If I want it to print slower so the ink has a chance to dry. On mine, I just say unclick the high speed, and then you just say print, and it'll go to your printer. What else did we leave off? Who did this work? Can you tell? Can't tell from that, can you? Nobody knows who did that work. Okay. Let's say bye. There. And I'm proud of my work, so let me change the font. Let's say I want to make the font big. How about that? Okay. So it still remembers the area that you said to print, right? So you don't have to tell it again. We just want to save it, of course. And let's see, what else do I want to do? When you go into page layout and this expand the box to give you these options, one thing I like to do with my print jobs is not only change the margins, which you can do here. I can make the top margin a little more, give me room to punch holes, but I may want to put a footer in it, like where is this information stored in case I want to go back and look at it again. So you can put a custom footer in there, right? On the left in the footer, I can put the file name. Let's see. Excuse me. I can put the path, and it's also built-in file. And if there are several pages in there, you can also add the page. You know, how many tabs are there? Well, it's going to say sheet 1. That's fine. And then over here, I may want to say, well, when did I do this job? Right? So you can put in the date and the time. There you go. And go over your sheet. Here's another way. If you want grid lines through the entire page, you can click on grid lines. And it'll put grid lines everywhere, even where you don't want them. So I'll leave those off unless I really want them. But print preview will give you what? Notice, there's my name. And down here at the bottom is the information that I put in the footer. Okay, here's the problem. Sometimes one side of the footer is so long it overlaps the other one. So what do I do with that? Well, I go back to, let's see, if I can do it from here. And no, I'm going to have to go back all the way. Let's go back here. And footer, custom footer. All right. You can change the font so that it's smaller and it's less likely to overlap. So you just click the A key and that gives you a font. I'm going to set it down as small as I can because it doesn't have to be prominent. It's just if I need to know where it came from, that's where it is. And the date time, we can make that small as well. And maybe they won't overlap now. There, they're separated. Okay, so now you can print. So, in fact, I am going to print mine. Let me check my properties to be sure they're still the same. Yep, I think they're still the same. So you just send it to the printer. And it might take a second to render. There it goes. Okay, it's printing. Now, suppose I don't want you to submit this in the Excel format. I want you to submit it in a form that's constructed on a page basis so I can see what you did. If you submit it as an Excel spreadsheet, then I can do anything I want to with it, and I don't actually see the work. So if you're going to submit this in Blackboard, you can print it, except we're going to print, let's see, where is it? We're going to print preview. We're going to change the destination of our print. Now, I'm not sure if you have this. I hope you do. Print to the PDF file. Now, I think that's standard with Microsoft Office now. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you got it, then you can print it to a PDF file. And then when you say print, it's going to ask you where to put it. Okay, so you put it someplace. Right? I don't want it to go there. I want it to go, I want it to be in the same directory, same folder as the original spreadsheet. So it's going to take some drilling down through this thing. Oops, back it up. And fall 2020, 103, selected. Yeah, this is good. There. Now I've got a PDF file that I could submit in Blackboard. Now, if for some reason you don't have that option, say the school's 365 doesn't give you that option, then you can print it off and take a picture of it and use either your iPhone's app to change it to a PDF, save it as a PDF, or you can use Cam Scanner in an Android phone to convert it to a PDF. And then you could submit it to Blackboard. Okay, I think that's enough. It's taking me 2 hours to do that. Over 2 hours, actually. No, not quite 2 hours. Okay, any comments, questions about this or anything else, actually? Now, the other labs, I have created, and I'm continuing to create videos that, for each of the labs, walks you through what you would be seeing if you were in the lab. So the next one, let's see. For example, the next lab after this one, we would be going into the lab on September 10th to do laboratory techniques. So that's also a non-formal report, right? This one's a non-formal. You just have to turn in your printed document, the printed spreadsheet. And the second one is not a formal lab. So you just have to fill out the form, the document that has the procedure in it, and answer those questions, turn that one in. Then everything after that is a formal report. So I'm giving you a little time in the beginning to get prepared for it.
For this one, was the footer mandatory, or were you just showing us how to do it?
I'm just showing you how to do that one.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's really important that you put your name in there somewhere for obvious reasons.
Right.
I'm good at some things, but I'm horrible at mind reading. Okay, so like I said, there'll be videos for each of the subsequent exercises, and let's see. I think for the first couple of them, I use my cell phone in a head harness, so it's a little jerky. Later on, I'll have an action camera that has image stabilization, it's a lot better. And then you can see what you would be doing, what I'm doing for you in the lab, and pay close attention, because sometimes I put the information on the paper in front of me. Sometimes I put it on the board and show you where it is. But you need to listen carefully for observations and data, so that you can put that in your lab notebook. And in fact, as I'm going through the procedure, you should have already prepared your lab notebook for that experiment. So then when you view the video, you can be writing in observations and data in your lab notebook. That's the goal. I want you to do in front of your computer watching the video, I want you to do what you would be doing in the lab, recording information and getting prepared to write a formal report. Well, that's after the first 2 labs, today and the next one. But after that, then you want to be able to reference your lab notebook. And about that time, when you're going to first start using the lab notebook, I'll call for photos of your lab notebook, so that I can see that you've got it set up right. But I'll send everybody an email when I'm ready to accept those and tell you which pages I want. Okay, anything else? All right. So we won't be doing this anymore. Everything else will be in the videos that I record for each of the labs. This one, I did this one in my office studio because this one doesn't require a lab, but the rest of them will be in the lab, and you'll get this type of experience, but it'll be in your lab environment. The first 2, I think I was managed to do them at the New River Raleigh County campus. But I teach at Southern in Logan, and some of the same labs I do in both places, here and there. So if I record a lab at Logan that's the same experience as you would have here, I'll post that one instead, so I don't have to just do the whole thing over again. So that's why the environment may look different in some of the later videos. Okay, so if nobody has anything else, we'll stop the meeting, stop the recording, and I'll post it on CHEM103 and Blackboard within a couple of hours, I'm sure. It takes a while to do the conversions and uploading, so give me a couple of hours and it should be there.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next week.